How's it going? As we talk about different things, you guys like to hear my missteps, I think. That's important to know because why waste time doing what I already did that didn't make any sense or that I learned from and changed up on? You feel free to make your own mistakes, of course, but listen to what I got going on and then maybe you could eliminate some of that. Or if you're in the middle of a similar debacle, maybe it'll help fix what you're dealing with. For a long time, I insisted everybody record with a click all the time because that allowed me to be able to sort of at least be able to overdub things, change parts, like there'd be a constant grid happening. I don't feel this way anymore. I don't know what it is, if it's like just the time in, this era of music or whatever, but, the pendulum has a tendency to swing and it went one way really towards electronic, everything locked to a grid in like the, 2000 era or so, all the way to like now. And a few years back, people started really appreciating that, the realness in music again. I'll never forget the Rick Beato documentary I saw that detailed Bonham. And it was basically describing how when you quantize Bonham, it kind of sucks. John Bonham sounds amazing, and part of the beauty of that is the way he's delaying. He's slightly behind the beat all the time. It makes him feel like there's such a groove in those songs because of everything being slightly out of where direct, locked into a grid would be. Jimmy Page may be on the beat or a little in front. JPJ bridges the gap, and Bono is behind. So, Bono. Imagine if Bono played for Zeppelin. Bonham. Anyway, we're leaving all the brain farts in forever. So you guys will, every time I fart on the brain, you'll hear it. So let's do what I mean here. I love the song Vaseline by STP. Right before the chorus, or the post-chorus, the way it ends, right? Is it you? Is it me? Search for things you can't see, going blind, out of reach, somewhere in the Vaseline. There's like Vaseline. It's not on the one when they come down. They're holding a little bit, which was all made possible because they didn't have a click, 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 click beating their eardrums in, determining where they should be. So I've also heard people like Bob Clearmountain mention this before, where the one beat being locked to a grid means that producers, mixing engineers, everybody can see where the grid lines are, and they have a tendency to want to line things up and make that everybody hit down on the one at the same time. Well, guess what this does? It actually makes the one beat smaller. Instead of it being boom, it becomes boop. And who wants that? Nobody likes a little boop. You want it to feel big and great. That slight push-pull creates a bigger sound on the one beat. So I have a tendency, this is my switched up philosophy, is like, if you're playing with a band that's super, super tight, it's really awesome to manipulate that grid as the band wants to make the song sound great. I have an experience with, my own band playing with a dude who's still a great friend of mine on drums, but we went to the studio one time. And it didn't help that the dude stayed up all night before, drinking, getting wasted, and missing the alarm clock. And we couldn't find him. And I had to go drive to his place with the guitarist who met me at my place. And we were all on our way to drive to the studio. We had to go wake this dude up who lived in an apartment building with a doorman. So I had to do my juke moves and get around the doorman and get up to the dude's door and start pounding on it and get the guy up to make to the studio on time. But none of this helped. There's a funny moment where I walked into the bathroom because I was like, bro, let's go. Because he's like, oh, sorry, man. He starts getting ready. And the dude is getting ready, but he's taking too long because I'm looking at my watch. The clock is ticking. And the dude, he's in the bathroom. I'm like, what are you doing in there? So I just open the door of the bathroom and I see him brushing his hair to the side. I'm like, are you kidding me? Who's going to see your hair, dude? So he did that for 1 second when he got done taking a poop or whatever. And that's, that's what I caught. But time was a wasting, time was a ticking, money was, I couldn't let that happen. So I did what I have to do. But the point is, let's go back to the story here. This drummer he's an amazing drummer. He's also not used to playing with a click. And our band had a natural tendency to sort of do what the part needed. If it was a part that needed to be pushed, he would push it a little. And if we needed to slow it down, we'd slow it down a little. But none of this was talked about out in the open. So we never really realized this was all happening, or at least I didn't. And when we went into the studio, the move in the studio was always, what's the BPM? Let's turn the click on. Let's make it. That was just always how we recorded. So when we tried to do that, and the dude couldn't really play the same parts the same way, it wasn't because he was hungover, I don't think. It was because that's just not how the parts, when you change the tempo, your part doesn't work the same necessarily. Try it, write a part that's a certain way in a certain tempo, then change the tempo, try to play the same part to the same song. The groove changes. So he was aware of what was happening and had to sort of change his parts on the fly while, to lock in with this click that was unchanging, which was not how we were practicing it always. We were very tight. And in the practice room, it was never with a click. So he was doing different things in practice compared to what he had to do in the studio. And I didn't realize it at the time, but it was a bad move to do that. And it was my call. I'm going to take blame for this. I don't think we should have recorded to a click. Once I realized that was happening, he actually tried to tell me. He was basically trying to tell me that it's not going to, and he did it in the nicest way possible. But me being the douchebag that I am, I gave him the most asshole answer I could have ever given somebody. And in hindsight, I kind of regret it. We're still friends, so it's like none of this matters, but it's just you look back on some of your actions and some of them, it's like, this is how you grow, right? In that moment, I actually told him, I was like, a drummer who can't play to a click is of no use to me. Like, what an asshole comment. Definitely didn't help his confidence, but he was such a good dude that he basically looked back at me and goes, Evan, you're not helping. That's how you know you're in the right band, because no matter what anybody does, it's never too big of a mistake to get over. Like, everybody knows everybody's intentions are in the right place. So that was just like my way of motivating him to do the right part. What a terrible way to motivate somebody. So what I gather is I should always, you gotta, like, as a producer now, I take a totally different mindset, because granted, that was my band. Whereas, when you're a producer and you have the objective view of what's going on, it's sort of up to you to see what's going on. Okay, this band they're playing a different song to the click than they would be without it. So don't use the click. There's really no reason to force a click on somebody. On a separate note, I never liked the sound of Beat Doctor or any of these things like in Pro Tools that would allow you to lock stuff to a grid. I never ever did that. Even when I was using a click, I didn't like the way it sounded to manipulate time in that way. I preferred the part to be exactly what the drummer played. So if they mess up a section, like let's say they rush a kick or something, on all of my recordings, I would usually find a place where they didn't, because we're recording to a click. And if you do multiple performances, you'll always have parts that were right within that click and parts that maybe, if there's a moment that sucks, copy the part from a place that was right and just put that part in again. So in other words, as a listener, you're not hearing a part that wasn't played by the drummer. You're only hearing a part where the drummer got it right just twice, or something like so. Instead of hearing it once, it'll happen, like you'll hear a moment that happens twice in the song, but as a listener, you'll never catch that because they're blips in time. It could be 1 second, 2 seconds of a part that I copied over from later in the song or whatever. As long as it was the same part he was playing, I would just find a perfect take of that within what he did that didn't rough me up with the groove. But I would never like stretch the time or manipulate where the hits were. I didn't like the way that sounded. I would always take it from something that was actually played where he played it in the click and put it where it needed to be in order to work. And I usually wouldn't slide things over because you can't really do that with drums. I mean, you could kind of do it if he's playing a part that's like just kick and snare or something, but as soon as you got overheads and room mics and all this stuff, when you start manipulating where things are, it really starts to get wacky. Like, you can't just move the kick and not the overheads and not the rooms. You can't really do that. You have to move everything. And then if there's cymbals hanging over things, it's like, what is that? Why is it just cut out and come back? That's why, because there was a cymbal hanging over the part and you tried to move something and it doesn't sound natural. So I don't like doing that. So anyway, what I really learned was that certain people, certain artists, certain bands, they need to not be recorded to a click because it'll bring personality out in the song. It will feel, you'll get more emotion out of the song, first of all. And number two, who cares if it sounds perfect? Like the concept of perfectly locked to a grid, totally tight, that may have been okay. That was gonna fly when everybody maybe was doing that or whatever, but I never liked it. Like there's a reason I don't like a lot of bands from certain eras, and it's because the producers were so concerned with perfection that it made it worse. Whereas other eras, when that didn't exist, recording to tape and different things like that, those things didn't happen, and they're easier to listen to, in my opinion. So again, this is all genre dependent, type of music dependent, and artist dependent, most importantly. Do what's right for the song, all right? And if you have the ability to put people together in a room and let them play together so that we can get the real vibe that was happening with the way they practiced it 100 times, that's always better than recording people separately, because you will get that tightness in there, and you won't have to record the drummer to a click by himself and then everybody else to a whatever by himself, because it's also harder for people to follow if you just record the drums to no click, let's say, then you bring in a bass player the next day to play to that. He's got to take his cues from what's happening visually, and when you're using both audio and visual cues, it's way easier for them to follow along, because even the guy's eyes, different things will cue them on where certain beats are when there's no click. And you don't have that. It makes it very tough. So here's another tip. If you're going to record people separately and go that route of no click, get video footage of what's going on, just like an animator would for a cartoon or something. Rather than recreate all the emotions somebody goes through, animators video the person doing the stuff, and they use their facial expression. They use whatever they can to make the animation that they're drawing appear more real. Because what that actor did when he was singing or talking, whatever, doing a voiceover, it's going to be the same thing you'll want in the cartoon to make it feel real. So it's just exactly the same way when you got a band. You want them to be able to see what was happening there so they could at least sort of like watch that and play along with it. That will help dramatically if you can't get people in the same room at the same time. They'll still be able to follow what's happening if they could see what was going down. It'll be as if they're playing with the guy. So again, everybody at the same time is the best, but number two, get video footage while you're getting the takes if you can. It's a little in-depth for some people, but get something so you could put up the visual cue of what was happening and lock it in with what he did. And then it's way easier for people to come in and do that after the fact. We'll cut it there at the moment. If you have questions about this or other ways that you guys handle it, or even something instead that you guys do, or let me know, because there's a lot to this, a lot we could talk about. All right. Evan Jaffe, Custom Cut Studios. If you got anything you need mixed and mastered, all the stuff's in the description. Special offer going on right now. And I'll talk to you soon. All right. Take it easy.